good afternoon if you're in Europe. Good morning if, like the two of us, you are in the US. I mean, the two of us, I have a guest on the phone today in the person of Laurent MIALHE, who is the chief supply chain officer of Huda Beauty. But before we get started, I'd like to remind everybody that the Agora Managers Club is organizing the Startup of the Year contest. You will find the link in the comment section if you'd like to vote. The voting is open up until 5 o'clock European time, GMT +1. So our guest today joining us on the phone is Laurent MIALHE. Again, he's the Chief Supply Chain Officer at Huda Beauty. And Laurent, I'd like you to quickly introduce the company for us because I'm not sure everybody is familiar with it. And then I would love for you to just give me some background on how you have or maybe are still managing the coronavirus crisis as a digital brand.
Good morning, Pierre. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So Huda Beauty is what we call a digitally born brand. Interestingly, the brand started following her leader, who is Huda, who today has 45 million followers on Instagram. And Huda has been providing us very strong and efficient education content on how to use cosmetic. And this is why she's been so successful. And about 3 years ago, she decided to launch her brand, which is mainly, color cosmetic product. And we are present in Sephora, in Europe, everywhere in the world. We are in the top 5 brand now at Sephora. Huda is also the leader in terms of trends on cosmetics. So if you look and you try to see who is leading the buzz now on color cosmetic in the world, it is Huda. The interesting thing is that the brand is based in Dubai, which is pretty abnormal because most of the brands are based, in China, in Europe, or in the US. But Huda and her family are based in Dubai, and this is where we started to build, the brand and all the supply chain from in Dubai. We've also launched recently some skincare, who has been extremely successful, and specifically during the COVID, where people were at home, maybe not wearing a lot of color cosmetics because they were not going out, but they were taking care of themselves. And we've seen a definite spike in the skincare product. Let me come back a little bit to the supply chain of Huda Beauty. The supply chain of Huda Beauty has one main characteristic, which is that it's totally outsourced. We do not own any factory. We do not own any suppliers. We have a small distribution center that we operate in Dubai, which was the original one. But for the rest of the globe, we use 3PL or logistic provider, as you know. We have factories across all the world. We have factories producing for us in New York, in the US. We have factories in France. We have factories in Italy. We have factories in Japan, in China, and in Korea. So I'm sure that when you hear all those countries, you are wondering, oh, this is possibly where there was a COVID crisis. And what was really funny is that if we look at the main area where cosmetics are produced in the world, not only for Huda Beauty, but also for most of the company, it is generally around Shanghai, around Seoul in Korea, around Milan, because Milan has always been the what we call the cosmetic valley in Italy, and also in New Jersey in the US, which, if you remember, has been the 4th area that has been the most impacted at the beginning from COVID. So we started to learn how to manage the COVID crisis when things started to be bad in China, where the factories we had around Shanghai closed, and they closed for the Chinese New Year, and they remained closed during 3 to 4 weeks after that. So we started to see that. Then little by little, the reaction we brought to China, we're able to use it again, when factories started to close in Milan, and in Korea, and also in France. Factories never closed in the US, thanks to a different approach to the COVID, where I will not comment. But at the end, we started to face, a kind of phase-by-phase closure of our factory. Okay. What has been our reaction? We are a small brand, but thankfully, we had a very strong SNOP process that we started a couple of years ago, where we were able, or very early in our development, to have a very, very good alignment between our demand and our supply. So as soon as the COVID started, we created what we call a defensive plan. And on the supply side, we basically run daily meetings at the beginning, where each market were actually updating the status of the demand with numbers, and we were able, on a daily basis, to stop ordering product, increase the order on some product, or just eventually manage our capacity, specifically in our distribution centers. Because
so
we're able
you're using sales data, daily sales data then.
Exactly. So we were on a daily process, and even if we were able to keep our logistics center open, they were in a lower capacity situation. So we had to adapt the capacity on a daily basis to the new demand. As you know, all Sephora stores were closed and everywhere in the world. So we saw a definite lowering of our demand on the brick and mortar, on the retail side. But we were able to shift our content on the internet, on the social media, to bring our consumer to the e-com side. So we're able to triple actually our sales on e-commerce during the COVID crisis. Not completely answering the loss that we had on the brick and mortar side, but we've been able to get really close to our original sales plan. So by really refocusing on e-com, by refocusing on our resources and our process, we were basically able to continue to answer our consumer needs. So that's the first.
Okay, how do you manage to do that when you said that you have an outsourced supply chain? So you're relying on 3PLs to do that. How do you manage that relationship and to have those expectations with 3PLs who are also dealing with the coronavirus at the same time?
Yeah, but if you look specifically, you will see that the 3PL have not closed. So when you are a big brand, you own your factory, you own your distribution center, it's your own employees. You basically have to take a lot of decision, and most of the big groups have closed their DC, have closed their plant because it was their employee. The 3PL were much more flexible, and in general, they were not delivering only cosmetics. So they've been able to stay open, being, for example, in the US, a critical organization because they were delivering product across the consumer and across the industries. So they've been able to stay open. Which was really good.
So you would say having an outsourced supply chain actually made it easier for you to
absolutely. We gain in flexibility. And the other point, Pierre, I think, which is important, is that we were a small brand. Now we are, of course, much bigger, being in the top 5 of Sephora overall in the world. But we've been able to design our supply chain originally to be quite flexible. I will just make some comment on increased flexibility after. But we have a supply chain, with small run size, small batch size. We basically produce very, very often our product. Instead of having, long inventory, we produce every week, we produce every month. Sometimes I would say at a higher price than it should be, but it's giving us a lot of flexibility and inventory spread across the world in order to manage peak of demand. So the erratic demand that we saw during the COVID, we're able basically to manage it, and I'm pretty proud to say that our service level have remained in the 96-97% during the COVID crisis.
So you did not end up with a stockpile of product because your product is being produced weekly, depending on the demand that you're observing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would not say that overall we've been able to continue to decrease our inventory. That would be a bit lying. But at the end, we have not seen a spike on inventory due to that. We're able to stop production, and we're able to adapt some of the production to the new demand. So that worked pretty well.
Okay.
So if we move a little bit to the next step in the 5 minutes we have going forward. There has been a few learnings, and we are now working on redeploying our supply chain a little bit differently. First, it's about global sourcing and global footprint. We are already global, but we are going to be looking now going forward to produce, I would say, 80% of our SKUs in every region of the world. Having a global supply chain is great, but when a crisis happens like that, basically the borders are closed, or suddenly you cannot move product the way you wanted. And we want to be able to manage production locally, even if there is a crisis somewhere in the world. So that's the first thing. Second thing, we are going to increase the connectivity with the suppliers. Even if I think it worked pretty well during the crisis, we want to be able to continue to develop product, because when a factory is closed, or even for a few weeks, not only you don't produce, but you slow down the development of product. There is no land trials done, etc. So we want to be in a situation going forward that we increase the connectivity to keep, better reactivity on our future launches. Third, we are going to move to even more agility by continuing to decrease our batch size, by looking at technology, allowing us to produce even more often our SKUs. We're also going to look at sustainability, of course. I mean, everybody's talking about clean product, green product. We clearly believe that the consumer are going to look at the beauty product now in a different way, wanting products that are risk-free. So it's a very vague concept, but we're gonna put some very specifics around that. And I think now we are in a phase where we are in what I'm calling a re-engaging mode. Even if all our suppliers have reopened, I believe that some are at risk, specifically the small one that did not have the financial strength to get through the crisis, and some of them are recovering slowly, some of them are recovering fastly, and it's important for us to understand which supplier is in what mode in order to see what we can expect from them in the next 3 months. Some have reopened 100% of capacity, some have decided to open slowly, some have lost businesses and have lot of available capacity. Some it's totally the reverse. They are in a lack of capacity mode. So it's really important, and this is what we are doing in July, that we understand in our supply chain really where are the risks in the coming 12 months. I believe we're going to have still a lot of issues. How do we anticipate them? And how do we keep a very, very good collaborative approach with all our suppliers across the world?
So basically,
this is basically where we are.
You're going to completely rethink your upstream supply chain. Is that essentially how it goes? Localize production, localize your supply chain, the upstream part of it. Among other reasons, in order to reduce your carbon footprint, because that's another way to have a more responsible supply chain. Is that kind of where you're going in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. But when I'm talking about green and risk-free, it's not only carbon footprint, it's also how do you ensure that the product you deliver through an e-commerce platform to your consumer is arriving risk-free, risk of contamination, that the packaging that you use to pack your product is green, or there is less packaging. So we want to bring now to increase the consumer experience by delivering always a product. We want to keep this always available in every potential crisis, and we want to bring it so that it's safe and the consumer can use it immediately. And to your point, producing locally so that it's available when the person needs it.
Okay, a couple of really quick questions, about 30 seconds each. Are you using one single 3PL that is globally present, or are you using multiple?
We are using multiple 3PL. We are using in each region the 3PL which is expert to that region.
Okay, and all right, thank you. And the second thing, what if there were, I don't know, 2, 3 really key pieces of advice that you would give a global company or company that is now looking to go global? What would that be?
So implement an S&OP process as soon as possible. Keep very high level of connectivity. Don't lose the connectivity between sales operation and your suppliers on a daily basis. That's really important. And third, I would say be socially responsible.
Be socially responsible. Hopefully people listen to you. I would love that. All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today. I know it's early in the morning for you. I appreciate your presence and your words of advice. Again, just want to remind our viewers to please go ahead and vote for the startup of the year, and the results will be actually announced later tonight. Laurent, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I wish you good luck in the future, and I hope to see you again.
Thank you all. Have a great conference. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.